You rolling? What happened on 9/11 is a phony, you know, and we've never learned the truth about 9/11. The whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips. And this is given me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish.
Aaron, can you be specific about when you met Rockefeller, how it happened in these discussions?
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I had made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, you know, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we go after Chavez in Venezuela. And sure enough, later, 9/11 happened. And I remember he was telling me how how you're going to see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places. And there's going to be this war on terror, which there's no real enemy. And the whole thing is a giant hoax, you know, but it's a way for the government to take over the American people.
He told you it was going to be a hoax.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no question. He says, there's going to be war on terror. And he's just laughing. There's no, who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened and then nothing's happened since then? Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to, can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people into subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this war, this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, you know, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago?
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on.
Right, an endless war on terror without any real enemy. That you can never, so you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy? It just goes on
and on? Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq. And people over there fighting, you know. But the war on terror, that's a joke.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. The truth is about the Middle East is, had there been no oil there, it would be like Africa.
Sie wissen doch, dass eine Isolierung einer großen Nation, gerade einer Exportnation wie Deutschland, auf Dauer überhaupt nicht durchzuhalten ist. Sie wissen doch um die Einflüsse zwischen Politik und Weltwirtschaft. Ich nenne mir nur das Beispiel WTO. Und Sie haben sich doch selbst vor wenigen Tagen in Johannesburg hingestellt und die Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika gegeißelt, dass sie in Umweltfragen einen Alleingang machen. Ich finde das genauso falsch wie Sie. Aber ich sage, genauso darf Deutschland sich nicht an die Seite stellen, sich isolieren, sondern muss mit der Gemeinschaft gemeinsam Positionen finden, meine Damen und Herren. Die Lösung mit Sicherheit nicht. Sondern die Aufgabe heißt doch, und Sie haben es doch theoretisch so oft gesagt, dass die Globalisierung von uns verlangt, endlich neu zu denken über das Verhältnis von innerer und äußerer Sicherheit. Beide sind nicht zu trennen und beide können wir für unsere Länder nur durchsetzen, wenn wir eine Allianz der Staaten dieser Welt, die Demokratie und Freiheit wollen, bilden und nicht Alleingänge in Deutschland machen, meine Damen und Herren. Und am 11. September haben wir alle in einem beeindruckenden Gottesdienst im Berliner Dom der Opfer des 11. September gedacht. Bischof Huber hat gesagt, selig die Frieden stiften, denn sie werden Söhne und Töchter Gottes genannt, aus der Bergpredigt. Und er hat es uns ausgelegt. Er hat gesagt, oft wird dieser Teil der Verkündigung Jesu als Aufforderung dazu gedeutet, Unrecht einfach nur hinzunehmen. Das ist ein Missverständnis. Sie, die Bergpredigt, lädt dazu ein, Möglichkeiten gewaltfreien Handelns zu erkunden. Und dann sagt er weiter, selig sind die Friedensstifter, nicht die Friedfertigen, sondern die Friedensverfestiger. Das ist die entscheidende Botschaft der Bergpredigt, so Bischof Huber, meine Damen und Herren. Sage ich Ihnen, ich möchte niemals in eine Situation kommen, dass eine deutsche Bundesregierung sich fragen lassen muss, habt ihr alles getan, um zu verhindern, dass der Diktator im Irak die Juden in Israel in Lebensgefahr bringen konnte? Habt ihr, ja, das müssen Sie sich schon anhören. Habt ihr vergessen, dass es das erklärte Ziel Husseins ist, die Existenz Israels zu vernichten? Habt ihr wirklich den Anfängen gewährt? Und meine Damen und Herren, es ist schon schwierig, wenn der irakische Außenminister Nadschi Sabri in diesen Tagen sagt, Deutschlands Veto erfolgt im Namen aller Völker, die sich nicht damit abfinden, dass eine Handvoll jüdischer und amerikanischer Gruppen der Welt ihren Willen aufzwingt. Das sind Kronzeugen, die möchte ich für deutsche Politik nicht haben, meine Damen und Herren. Die haben sie im Augenblick und davon müssen wir schnellstens wieder runterkommen und dafür wird die Union sorgen, meine Damen und Herren.
Wenn es diesen Sturz von Saddam Hussein 2003 nicht gegeben hätte, dann würde es heute den Islamischen Staat nicht geben. Weder im Irak noch in Syrien noch in Libyen hat es auch nur ansatzweise islamistische Gruppierungen von Bedeutung gegeben. Nach den Interventionen und dem Versuch des Regimewechsels in Syrien ist alles zusammengebrochen. Wir haben jetzt weite Flächen, die sozusagen ohne Herrschaft sind, ohne Kontrolle. Und das wirklich Erstaunliche ist, wenn man sich dieses Ganze vergegenwärtigt. Man kann ja in der Realität lesen und kann verfolgen, was geschehen ist in den letzten Jahren. Die politisch und militärisch Verantwortlichen, weder in den USA noch in Europa, noch in der NATO lernen aus ihren Fehlern, sondern sie bereiten die nächsten militärischen Interventionen vor, insbesondere in Libyen. Das wird der nächste Fokus werden.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. There is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion